A few years ago, I was homeless and I was living at Flinders Street Station, and I was invited to a soup kitchen at the Melbourne Square. And about half an hour later, a cage got built around me, and I was mentally ill. I am mentally ill, and homeless. I've been homeless since I was 14. And the police stole everything I owned. They stole my swag. They stole my medication, my wallet, everything. And this was because Starbucks had complained about a mess out in front of their business. But they were paying $500 rent and no taxes. I don't care about that. What I care about is my brain damage and trauma, and the fact that these powers that you're presenting towards fixing this problem of this mess on the street are actually just going to exacerbate the situation and create a situation where we're all thrown through court for assault, for resisting arrest.
I'm going to show you a bit of leniency.
No, you're not. I'm going to continue talking. Sorry.
No, mate, you're not.
You'll kick my brain in, and you stole everything.
I'm sorry.
Your order. So
you can't
keep talking. You can arrest me. Arrest me if you
want.
want.
Be taken seriously.
I don't care. I don't care about being taken seriously, mate. I'm a mentally ill, homeless person.
Mate,
I recently received commissioned housing. I access homelessness services, and I will be for some time to try and, manage my way into this new society, which I've never been allowed to be a part of. Now, the homelessness community that's gathered at Melbourne is because all the services are basically centred in Melbourne. So by the time that you've gone from Fitzroy for your GP clinic to North Melbourne for your drug and alcohol clinic to St Vinny's Hospital to wherever, at the end of the day, it's a full-time job to maintain your position on that list of people who are going to be provided with housing. And if you don't attend the appointments, you're cut off. So you have to stay here. And at the end of the day, that's a full-time job. That's working harder than you. And you fall asleep and you're exhausted. Now, I've sat there with my hernia hanging out, having to drag the fucking swag in one hand and my dog in the other, manage all these appointments, and still, the police have moved along orders and move along. And now you're sitting there saying, well, if you've got stuff out, we're going to confiscate all your stuff. But that's just going to create a situation, provoke triggers, get people arrested for more charges. Just the other day I attended a protest at Flinders Street Station. The police grabbed a woman and they slammed her on her head. I went in and stopped them from beating this woman up, and I was portrayed as a feral and as a violent criminal through the media, through every single media. Except one person held their video camera up and filmed the actual real thing of the police slamming her head to the ground. And that's what I'm talking about, and that's why I'm here today. Because that's what's really going to happen, alright?
Thank you for your submission.
It's not just a submission, mate.
Simply move the problem elsewhere. Melbourne is such a beautiful city, we could create a new way of dealing with people facing homelessness. That may be of interest to those that like to see visitors come to Melbourne and learn how we deal humanely with homelessness. The legislation as it's proposed simply puts another burden on people going through a crisis in their lives. No matter how long that crisis is, our current system has not addressed it. And there are many reasons for this. And I think it's preemptive to pass that legislation at this point in time. Council should look at other options, safe spaces, lockers, all kinds of things that can be examined, and discuss these items with members of the homeless community, which is easily done. You walk around, you spend quality time, you learn. I cannot speak for the homeless community because I don't represent them, but I've spoken with them. And I've also had a lived experience of homelessness. And that is something I personally would never want to have to relive. But if we provide, from my view, safe spaces, venues where people can get support, currently existing services are in Melbourne. He's all right. Deaf. Currently, the existing services that people come to in Melbourne from the homeless community, they come here because they are here. They're nowhere else in the suburbs. I can take people to the eastern suburbs. There are no services. So we're further pushing people to the edge, and we can't afford to do it. Let's remain humane in all we do. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Lord Mayor, councillors.
Thanks, Andrew. Any questions for Andrew? Andrew, you may take a seat. Thank you.
So, we're from the group Freedom from Poverty. Homelessness is a massive issue in Melbourne. But putting through these bylaws, all it's going to do is push people out of the CBD and into other municipalities that don't have the resources and the support for them. Sweeping it under the rug isn't going to fix it. And you can't end homelessness by hiding it. You can't shift your responsibility for the people of Melbourne and push it into other places, and Band-Aid solutions aren't going to fix this. You guys have the power to change this. You have the power to put pressure on the state governments and federal governments and actually solve these issues humanely and properly and with respect to the dignity of the people who are involved. Homelessness isn't a lifestyle choice, but you definitely can help people to get out of it. We need you to fulfil your responsibilities as elected public representatives and work for all the people of Melbourne. Anything less means that you're consciously choosing to abandon people and push them into destitution. Do you want to be remembered as the council that has done that to people? Or do you want to be remembered as the council that did the right thing by all the people of Melbourne? I'd love to hear a response from all of you.
Thanks, Kate. Any questions for Kate? Kate, you may take a seat.
Councillors, I speak to you as the CEO of Urban Seed, which is a community development agency here in the city that works with those who are experiencing marginalisation. And thanks for this opportunity to address the committee. I've written a submission for your perusal, and I'd like to highlight three things here. I sat where you're sitting a number of years ago. It was the time of the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne, and there was great concern about the homeless population. There were suggestions floated that we could rid Melbourne streets of rough sleepers in those days, but the City of Melbourne stood up against that on human rights grounds, and Melbourne became a champion city for all people through its homelessness protocol. I urge Council to consider the issues before you now from the same perspective. The second thing I want to say, the draft amendments before you tonight include a redefinition of camping that could be read as outlawing rough sleeping. Paragraph 2.8 includes the words, quote, in a car, tent, caravan or any type of temporary or provisional form of accommodation, close quote. The lack of clarity around, quote, any type of temporary or provisional form of accommodation, close quote, is where my concern lies. If this extends to a roll-out mattress and or a swag and or blankets, then it effectively outlaws rough sleeping and is therefore antithetical to the city's homelessness protocol. I urge the Council to address this lack of clarity to make sure that rough sleeping is not outlawed in the city. The third thing I want to say, there are ways and means to address these issues so that the rights of all people are addressed. For example, lockers could be provided for rough sleepers to store their gear during the day, and drop-in centres established around the city to give them a place to belong during the day where services could be provided. At Urban Seed, we're ready to work with Council, Victoria Police and service providers to address the problems of street homelessness. We bring over 21 years of experience in community development and place management, personnel trained and experienced in these areas, city property that can be utilised, and a generally good reputation with those experiencing marginalisation here in the city. The papers presented to Council have to include impact statements. What impact will this decision have on the economy of the city, the environment, the social structure? When I was on Council, we added an impact. How would it affect the children in the city? Because we're attempting to become a registered child-friendly city. I suggest to you tonight that the most important impact to consider is how will this decision affect the city's most vulnerable. Thank you for the opportunity.
For the opportunity to speak. So I'm Kate Colvin, I'm the acting CEO of Council of Homeless Persons, which is the peak of the homeless sector. I just ask councillors tonight in voting on this motion that you prioritise, like the Speaker before me said, that you do no harm to people who are already vulnerable. The proposal to expand the definition of camping will cause considerable harm to people who are homeless. It's just simply too broad. And, you know, we've heard some commentary in the media and others that there is people who are not homeless, who are occupying space in the city, and that this is intended to address that. And I really ask you to consider that it will actually deeply affect people who are homeless. If it affects others as well, the point is to consider what impact it will have on people who are homeless. The first impact that it will have, of course, is that it will increase people's interaction with the justice system. We know that has a devastating impact on people. It's never a help or an assistance. It always tends to pull people down further. They'll end up with fines which they cannot pay. They'll end up with arrests for reacting to council officers, and increase in imprisonment will be a consequence of that. But it also asks you to consider the impact that it has on people's mental well-being. We know that exclusion from society is terrible for people's mental health. So at a low point when people have nowhere else to go, they're going to be approached by a council officer saying that they can't be where they are, where they're just simply lying down in the street, because the definition is so broad that we can't see how it will not prevent people from simply being able to lie down on a piece of cardboard or a simple swag. They will be told that they have to leave, that they're subjected to a fine when they have nowhere else to go. This is taking away some very basic rights that people have. It's really compromising people's dignity. Effectively, we feel like it's saying to people that they shouldn't exist. I repeat again that excluding people is simply devastating for their mental health. So each of these impacts, both increasing people's interaction with the justice system and compromising their mental health, further marginalises people who are already being pushed to the margin by the limits of what society has provided. So terrible cost to homeless people. So whatever you might think that it might achieve, please keep in mind that it will have that appalling cost on people who are already very vulnerable. It's simply too great a consequence of this amendment. So we ask you to ensure that this amendment proceeds no further tonight by not putting it to public consultation and just proceeding instead with the other matters that have been put forward in the proposal. Of course, appointing Bernie Geary to the role that's been proposed would be useful, and I think there's been some other measures. Communications campaign may also be useful. But the second point...
Sorry, thanks, Kathy. 3 minutes.
That's 3?
Yeah.
All right.